Hi girlies, welcome back to my channel. As the year is wrapping up, I've definitely been doing some self-reflection on the purchases I've made, if there's any purchases I want to make before the year ends, what I want to purchase in the next year. And as I've been doing some of that thinking and I've been looking over all the purchases that I've made this year, I also want to talk about some of the things that I've ended up letting go this year as well. So this video is going to be dedicated to some bags that I've sold in the past year and kind of what I replaced them with, and generally my thinking about how I approach luxury bag shopping. So we're gonna get right into the video, but before we do, I want to give a quick shout out to today's part sponsor, which is Ana Luisa. I've worked with Ana Luisa several times in the past. If you guys are familiar with my channel, then you guys know that Ana Luisa is a great, affordable, and sustainable jewelry brand. I'm a girl who generally likes all shades of gold. Lately, I have been wearing a lot more white gold and silver tones recently just because I have gotten engaged. I'm trying to match my jewelry a little bit around my engagement ring. But definitely as the holidays approach and the sparkling lights and the red and green and like the warmth of the atmosphere definitely makes me want to return to my rose gold and yellow gold habits. So I did request Ana Luisa to send over some beautiful gold jewelry. So we're gonna start off with these cute little earrings. These are the Esther gold drop earrings. They are so fun and so festive, and they're asymmetrical. So on the left and right ears, we do have different charms that are attached to these gold hoop huggies. So on my right side, I have this cute little heart charm and this drop pearl charm. And then on my left side, I have a cute little gold bow. And oh my gosh, this is so festive for the holidays. And what's really nice about these earrings in particular are that the chains are removable. So let's say you just wanted a super casual daily wear piece, you can remove all the charms and then they just become a simple pair of gold hoop huggies. And not only are Ana Luisa pieces great for me to wear personally, they also make really great gifts. So they usually come in these really nifty travel cases, so they make really great stocking stuffers. Additionally, they're hypoallergenic, they're tarnish free, so they're going to be suitable for a wide range of individuals. The next piece I want to quickly share with you guys is this really adorable gold ring. This is the Zeta ring and it has a really nice quilted pattern on it. This is definitely a little bit more of a statement ring because it's quite large and chunky, a lot larger than the rings I typically wear, so I just popped one on my hand because I felt like it was enough. Like I was saying, definitely around this holiday in particular, I really feel like gold jewelry is taking the spotlight. It's just something that feels so warm and so elegant, and typically I do have to admit I usually like rose gold a lot more, but I do feel like lately like rose gold has been kind of a tone of gold that I've liked in my youth, and I'm still young, but definitely as I'm getting a little bit older, I do feel like a little bit of an urge to transition a little bit into gold jewelry because I do feel like it's slightly more refined and slightly more mature, and it's just so beautiful. However, I know that the color gold is a super personal preference. I know that everyone out there is not a huge fan of gold, so don't worry, I did pick out one additional item to share with you guys in case you are a little bit more of a silver or white gold girly. These are the Suzanne Huggies. They are so itty bitty, so adorable. They are silver with cubic zirconia in them. They still sparkle so adorably, and they're so minimalistic, like the perfect daily wear piece. And again, because these are hypoallergenic, you can keep them on, they're tarnish free, you can shower with them, you can do whatever. And personally for me, I much prefer just like super low key jewelry, daily jewelry, and so these little Suzanne Huggies are perfect for me because while they're still super minimalistic and super low key, they still have a little bit of sparkle to let others know I'm in the festive season. Ana Luisa makes the perfect gift for everyone on your list, so make sure to check out the link that I've left down in the description box. They're currently having a massive holiday sale where you can save up to 35% off your purchase, so you definitely don't want to miss out. Okay, now jumping back to all the bags that I ended up selling from my own personal collection, why I sold them, and what I replaced them with. I'm going to generally try to follow a chronological order, but I don't exactly remember when each bag was sold, so please bear that in mind. But the very first bag that I ever sold from my collection was my Dior Caro. It was in the small size and the color was warm taupe, and that was actually like the very first kind of more expensive luxury bag that I ever purchased, I think. I believe I bought that bag back in 2022, and the major reason that I bought that bag was because I wanted some sort of like mini flap style, and originally I definitely wanted to get a mini flap from Chanel, but I was under the general impression that that would have been like impossible, and I was trying to get a bag for my birthday that year. And back then I was just starting out my luxury collection. I wasn't super informed about like what is available in luxury. I hadn't really built up any relationships with any essays from like any luxury boutique, and so I just generally had this kind of like misconception, or maybe it is like a real conception of like the mini flap from Chanel is going to be impossible, so let's just settle for something else. And so, you know, if you live in San Francisco, you know that the Dior boutique is really close to the Chanel boutique, so I kind of just skipped over Chanel and walked over to the Dior boutique, and of course every style at Dior is relatively available, and the closest style to the mini Chanel flap, in my opinion, is the Dior Caro. I spent quite a bit of time actually mulling over the color because I was like unsure if I wanted a bit more of like a light beige color, but I did end up settling on the warm taupe color. I think in store it looked like a really pretty taupey brown color, but generally, like out of the store and in a lot of different lightings, it does pull quite purple, which I wasn't the hugest fan of. But regardless, I purchased her. I think back then she costs $4,000 pre-tax, and I was very excited. Like I said, it was the first like more expensive luxury bag that I ever purchased for myself, and it was for my birthday. So, you know, I took her out and I was super excited. There was a little bit of drama that's kind of irrelevant to, or it's a little bit relevant to why I sold her, but there was kind of a quality issue with the strap on the Dior Caro. The Dior Caro strap is very hardware heavy, so there's a lot of yellow gold links that make up the chain, and it's quite of like a loud bag too because of all this hardware rubbing against each other. But there were a lot of what looked like watermarks on the metal portion of the chain, and if you checked the chain against bags that were available like on the floor display, they looked different. Like the floor display chains looked very clean. It was like the classic, what you would expect like yellow gold hardware to look like. It's shiny, there's not any marks on it, but my chain had like a bunch of like weird water looking marks on it. I will try to put a picture here if I still have one on the screen of what I'm talking about, but I had to go to the boutique and ask for a strap replacement. Originally, they were like, oh no, it looks fine to me, like you're not gonna get a strap replacement. If you want, you can buy a whole strap. So I actually ended up having to contact Dior corporate and explain my situation, and then they ended up getting me a new strap for free. And that one was slightly better, but it was still like not great. So I don't, like, honestly, every chain that I looked at from the Dior Caro bag looked slightly different and slightly strange, so I have no idea what that was about. But that is one factor of why I ended up wanting to sell the bag, was because that kind of bothered me, like why the chain wasn't perfectly shiny and gold. It wasn't even like scratched, it was just these watermarks that had appeared on it. So that was kind of number one. And then number two, as I began to use the bag, I realized that I didn't like how hardware heavy the bag was. So like I said, the chain has a lot of really yellow gold hardware. Like the yellow from Dior is quite yellow, I have to say. The chain is like almost all metal except for a little portion that kind of sits on your shoulder. There's also like these kind of large L-shaped pieces of hardware that connect the chain to the bag. And then of course, the flat portion of the bag, the turn lock, is this huge CD logo that's much bigger than like the Chanel little CC turn lock. And so as I was using it, I just realized like I really disliked how much yellow gold there was, because generally also for me, I didn't wear tons and tons of yellow gold. Like I mentioned before, I like rose gold a little bit more. So if the majority of my jewelry was rose gold, I felt like it clashed really hard with like this stark yellow gold. And so I ended up just like slowly not reaching for it anymore, just because I felt like it was really loud, too yellow, and just was really hard to coordinate. So honestly, I didn't even end up using that bag that often, because I used her for a little bit and then I ended up just like putting her in my closet and not thinking about her again. So I ended up selling her on Facebook, I believe. Facebook is a really great place to sell stuff. And so there's like dedicated Facebook pages for different brands. So in the Dior group brand, I ended up selling my bag for a bit of a loss, but not too much, because I think the price went up a little bit. So I'm super glad that she was able to be rehomed to someone who would actually use her. And so now you might be curious as to what I replaced her with, and I replaced her with what I wanted originally. And this is so nice, because I do feel like if you have a bag that you want in mind and you're for some reason just looking for an alternative, whether or not it's because it's like too expensive or whatnot, I definitely understand the price aspect, but these two bags, like the Caro and the Flap, were pretty similarly priced. They're about $1,000 apart, I think. And so with that price difference, I really don't feel like it was right of me to try and compromise what I truly wanted, which was the classic look of a Chanel Flap. And I feel like if you do try to find replacements or alternatives, it always might be a little bit like weighing on the back of your mind, and you might not enjoy the purchase they make as an alternate to the one that you truly want. So in the time that I was kind of using my Caro and stuff, in about like a year essentially, so I think I bought my Caro in 2022 for my birthday, and then I got this mini flap in 2023 for my birthday. And so generally about a year had passed, and in that meantime, I had started to build a relationship with someone. I really loved my SA. Unfortunately, he has left Chanel at this point, so I don't really shop Chanel as much, because I really enjoy shopping when I was shopping with him. And also like Chanel prices and quality and stuff. I don't know, Chanel just has not been calling my name, but I'm so glad I was able to get my hands on such a beautiful and classic bag. Especially I got her a little bit before a couple price increases, so that's also a huge plus, girl math. But truly, the Chanel flap solves so many problems that I had disliked about the Dior Caro. Number one, the hardware is much more minimal on the Chanel flap, so obviously they have a woven chain, so it's a lot more leather heavy than hardware heavy. The CC turn lock is much smaller than the Dior Caro, so again, it's just like very like more subtle in that sense. And I do believe that this is the yellow gold of Chanel. It's not like the champagne gold. It is much less yellow. It is a very, very light yellow gold, which I much prefer over like that super, super yellow gold that was all over the Dior bag. So looking back on why I disliked the Dior Caro so much, the Chanel flap solves all their problems. It has very minimal hardware. The hardware that it does have is a really pretty light yellow gold as compared to a really yellowish yellow gold. It's actually a really quiet bag since there's not like a double chain pulling through. The car was super, super loud, especially when you were carrying it or walking around. It clanked a lot. But generally, if you compare the functionality of the both bags, they're super similar in structure. Like they both have a back pocket. They both have a main compartment in here. They were relatively the same size. So if you're concerned about like, oh, can this one fit less or the other one fit more? No, generally, I think they were relatively the same. The next bag, and I'm going to explain why I use quotation marks in just a second, that I ended up selling was actually my very first Chanel bag purchase, which makes me a little bit sad. I guess it's not really a bag, it's more of a small leather good or like a clutch on chain. But it was this itty bitty little square, it's essentially almost like a card holder. It's a little bit bigger than a card holder, but it was a clutch on chain. It was essentially the same size as a card holder, and it had the classic woven leather chain that Chanel has. And it would be like a crossbody bag, or if you doubled it up, it could be like a tiny little shoulder bag, or it was also really great if you had that little like chain and link hook thing. You could also make it as a belt bag. So it was a really versatile bag. I loved that bag because it was a nice way to get an entry into Chanel because it was a little under $2,000 when I bought it. So the price point was much more digestible than in comparison to a lot of other Chanel bags that, you know, kind of start around the $5,000 range. And especially for me, who I was pretty young at the time, I was constantly going out with my friends, going out to like concerts or bars or, you know, wherever. It was really nice to have like that really secure, tiny little card holder secured right next to my body so I could put like my cards, my lipstick or whatever, all of that fit in really nicely. But it's still a little touch of luxury that I can carry out without feeling like super worried that, you know, it's going to get damaged in the process. But eventually, as I got a little older, I started not to reach for it because, guys, I'm such a homebody now. Like, I don't want to go out drinking. I never go out to the clubs anymore. Even concerts, I'm like, ugh, I'm so tired, especially with like my work and stuff. So I just didn't reach for that anymore. And I never had a reason why I only needed to carry out my cards, essentially. Like these days I need to carry out way more, and so again it just kind of got like put into a box and put into my closet. And I know that that style is pretty popular, again because it's just like a super tiny little Chanel flap. Like it's so cute, and also because of the price, a lot more people are able to buy into that price point. And so when I listed it on the Facebook group, it got snatched up immediately. The great and non-great thing about Chanel is that there are so many price increases, and so because of that, when I eventually did get around to selling that piece, I sold it for essentially the same amount or even maybe a little bit more than what I bought it at. And it was still a good deal for the person who bought it because I was still cheaper than what like the actual prices. Like if you go into a boutique and try to get the same thing, it was still cheaper than that. So again, I'm like all for buying and selling resale. And I really appreciate people who do participate in that kind of sustainable shopping because I get, you know, some spending money to go towards another purchase, and my bag gets to go to a home that will really love it and continue to use it. So it doesn't just sit in my closet and waste away, essentially. So the main reason why I sold that bag was because of the size. Like I don't feel like I will ever want to go back to really getting back into mini bags. I think that phase has completely left my wants and needs. So because the reason for selling that bag was primarily the size, I didn't feel any want to replace it with something similar because I didn't want another bag that was the same size as that because I felt that it was really lacking space for my lifestyle. So after selling that, I wasn't looking to purchase anything necessarily. If I had to pick something that replaced it, it could be my mini Kelly, but this honestly does fit way more than that tiny little Chanel like card holder on chain ever did. So in my mind, I didn't actually replace it with anything. It's just something that I sold because it no longer fit my needs and my lifestyle. The next bag that I ended up selling is actually my white Chanel seasonal flap. So that one was so cute, and that was also a bag that I kind of bought because I thought I couldn't get a classic mini flap. There was a time before I had built up my Chanel relationship with my SA where I was going kind of like meeting one-off individuals to help me while I shopped. And every time if I'm like, oh, do you have a mini flap? They're obviously like, no, sorry, don't have any stock. And we didn't really communicate about like seasonal launch dates and all that stuff. And so again, because of that conception that I had, I was like, okay, there was this super cute white mini flap that was available when I walked in one day. I was like, I'm just gonna get this one because I don't think I'm gonna get the classic one. And that's kind of what drove the purchase in the beginning, because again, I did want a really cute little mini flap that I could wear and, you know, have that Chanel look. And I really, really love that bag. It was so pretty, like a white Chanel flap or a white Chanel bag in general, like really gets me. Even now, I want something like white and Chanel. Like I'm considering if I wanted to get like an actual, like a small white classic flap or like a really light gray classic flap. So that's still something that I do want. But the bag that I actually bought, which was the mini flap, it didn't really satisfy those needs. And as I was using it, again, because when you buy a bag, you're not really sure how it's gonna accurately fit into your lifestyle. As I started using it, there were a couple of issues that, again, I noticed. Number one, it was white lambskin, and while you touched it, it was so buttery. Like it was like the softest lambskin I'd ever felt. It doesn't feel like the lambskin that comes on like my classic mini flap, for example. It was much softer. The quilts were a lot bigger as well. I don't know if that plays into any of the process or if the color played any process into why it was so soft, but it was so buttery smooth. And while it's beautiful to look at, beautiful to touch, it was not durable. Like, let me tell you, and especially because it's white. And I learned this a really hard way when I took it out for lunch one day, and I don't even know how this happened, but I got this horrible yellow stain on the bag. And since it's white, it's obviously super noticeable. I had no idea how to get it out, and I did a lot of research, and thankfully, I had bought a bunch of these products and tried a bunch of stuff out, and I can link a video if you want of how I actually ended up clearing that stain out. But while I was really lucky to be able to get the stain out that one time, after I got that stain, I was actually very scared to use the bag because I was like, oh, this is an expensive purchase. I don't want that to happen again. Like I have to be so careful about the clothing I wear, especially because like for the mini flap, it's either a crossbody bag or a shoulder bag. It's not really like a top handle bag. So typically you will always be coming into contact with some part of your clothes or another. And so after that, I just wasn't really reaching for it anymore. And that made me really sad because I did really think that it was a beautiful bag. And then the second thing that was probably a little, just like a minor thing, is that I realized I don't really like antique gold hardware. And that was the hardware that was on the bag. A lot of like seasonal collections from Chanel do come out in this like antique gold hardware. And I think it looks good in certain situations, but I do generally just prefer like lighter colored metals. I don't like the antique gold hardware as much as I like light gold hardware or the yellow gold hardware from Chanel. So, I mean, it's just personal preference that I ended up discovering about myself. And so once again, I was left in a little bit of a situation where I had put the bag in my closet and I really wasn't pulling her out. And for me, I'm a very like realistic person in that sense where I don't like it when things are just like sitting around and doing nothing. I prefer to try to use everything that I have. I don't feel like I'm going to ever be a person where I'm just like going to be collecting a bunch of bags. Like I have no desire to do that. So if there's something that I'm not using, or if I feel like I've moved on from it, or it's not fitting into my lifestyle, I'm more than happy to let it go. I think I took a $500 or $600 loss on that bag. I don't exactly remember, and that totally makes sense. People are probably a little bit wary of white, just like I was, and it's also a seasonal flap, so it's way less popular than the classic flaps that sell in the resale market. So even taking all that into consideration, I got a good deal. I think I was happy with the price that I ended up selling it for, and I was able to use those funds to fund a bag that I've been so in love with. So I ended up using those funds to buy the small DJoy from Dior. You guys saw that I got this Christmas last year. I mean, it is so gorgeous. And once again, this bag, although it's quite similar, like it's like a relatively mini bag in a white color, it solves all the problems that I experience with my seasonal Chanel flap. So number one, the lambskin on the DJoy is much more durable feeling than the Chanel lambskin. I really don't know how to describe it to you guys, but the Chanel lambskin was just so delicate. So this one is much better. Number two, I do love the look of a white bag. Like I'm obsessed with white these days. It's probably the best way to put it. So I really like any white clothing, white bags, white accessories, whatever. But you have to be realistic in the fact that white does get dirty. But a great way to combat white getting dirty is to be able to wear the bag top handle. So this is a method to carry your bag away from your clothing, just in case you're wearing like a little bit more darker clothing or a little bit more abrasive clothing. So that is a huge plus as to why I wanted to get the DJoy, because it does have the ability to carry a top handle. And again, not only okay, you wear a top handle, you have 2 additional ways to wear it. So you can wear it shoulder bag, you can wear it crossbody. So honestly, the way that I feel about the DJoy is that it still captures all the things that I loved about the Chanel mini flap that was in the white seasonal lambskin, but it also is a huge improvement over it, solving all the issues that I had with the Chanel lambskin and providing a lot more additional features that I really enjoy. I did have to pay a little bit extra on top of the amount that I received from selling the Chanel mini, but I think it is well worth it for all the things that it solved about that bag, and I have no plans on selling this. It is so gorgeous, so lovely, and I absolutely love her. Now, the last bag that I've ever sold for my collection, so this brings the total amount of bags I've ever sold up to 4, is my Louis Vuitton Alma BB. Now, there's a reason why this is like the most recent bag to have sold, but it's also the longest bag that I've ever owned because it's actually my very first luxury bag purchase. I purchased this all the way back in 2021. It was the very start to shopping luxury for me. And so I definitely held on to it for sentimental value, and I used that bag so much in the first year that I bought her. I absolutely loved her. The canvas was so durable. I mean, it held so much. It was so cute. You could carry a top handle, you could carry it crossbody, you could accessorize it. I bought these super cute Louis Vuitton charms, and you can carry other charms on it. Like, Louis Vuitton, in my opinion, is probably the best intro luxury brand. I mean, the canvas is super durable, and you can buy really nice size bags for a really great price, and so you're able to buy into luxury through Louis Vuitton because Louis Vuitton is still like a really well-loved luxury brand at a really great price point, and those bags that you do buy are going to be lasting you a lifetime. So I think it's a really great way to enter the luxury space. And even though I had to use that Alma BB, and of course with anything that I own, I am treating it with care, I am careful with it, I use it a ton, but honestly, if you packed it up into a box and like presented it to me as new, I would have not ever known that that bag had been used. It was like such great quality. I love that bag. And that's mainly the reason why I kept holding on to her for so long, because I just had that like sentimental value attached to it. But ultimately, I had not used that bag for like 2 years. I have honestly not used that bag since I started shopping at like Chanel and Dior and obviously Hermes. The damier pattern or like Louis Vuitton monogram is not something that just like appeals to me that much anymore. And honestly, I have no idea if I would ever want like a Louis Vuitton monogram or damier piece to add into my collection. It was just sitting in my closet. As always, all these 4 bags, they were just sitting in my closet, and because it wasn't even that expensive a bag, I was honestly just like planning to let it be. Maybe I would pass it on to my daughter one day or whatever, but again, for me, I'm a like realistic person. I knew that I was not realistically going to use that bag anytime soon, and it is a widely popular, like, people love the Alma BB. It is such a great starter piece into anybody's luxury collection, and so I knew that if you like look on the Facebook groups and stuff, people were constantly in search of it for a great price or selling it or for whatever. So I just listed it one day, I took a couple pictures, and it sold I think like the next day. And that, again, because I had held on to it since 2021 and I sold it in 2024, the price has gone up since then, obviously. So I sold it for exactly the same price that I bought it, which is still much cheaper than what it's selling for now. And those funds, I think I sold it for like $1,300 or something. It was like not that much money. I did put a little bit of those funds towards shopping at Hermes, but I guess if you could think about a bag that had replaced the Alma BB for me, the closest bag that comes in like style and shape is probably my Kelly 25. And of course, I don't think these bags are really able to be compared to each other because this one is so much more expensive and the shape is different and everything, but generally a top handle bag is how I carried the Alma BB. I love to carry her just like in the crook of my arm, and it was generally like a trapezoidal half circle shape. I carry the Kelly 25 in the exact same way, or my Birkin 25. Most bags that I have now, I carry top handle. I love top handle bags. So because I had so many other top handle bags to choose from, I just wasn't reaching for my Alma BB, and I hate to say it because, you know, I respect all luxury brands, but if I had a choice between carrying an Hermes bag and a Louis Vuitton bag, 9.8 times out of 10, I'm going to be choosing my Hermes bag. And generally, especially this year in particular, I've been trying to be a lot better about minimizing my clutter, so selling things off that I don't need. And it doesn't just apply to bags, like other things inside my house I've been trying to just like pass on to someone who needs it or whatever. The Alma BB honestly had no issues as a bag itself. I really loved every aspect of that bag. The only reason that I sold it is just because I got several other bags that I much preferred using over it. So if I'm not using a bag in over a year, that bag just has to go. But those are all the bags that I've ever sold from my personal collection, why I sold them, and what I replaced them with. And generally, as like an ending note, I do generally believe that if you are someone who loves shopping like me and who loves luxury like me, and you don't have like an endless supply of money or endless amount of space for that matter, it is really important to be able to let go of things that you don't use, be realistic in what's fitting your lifestyle, being mindful of the purchases that you make, because if you are not, then you're just going to have so much clutter in your house, so much unnecessary spending and purchases and things like that. And so for me in particular, I do try to have like a one bag in, one bag out policy. But I also wanted to make this video because I think it's important to try to talk about sustainability. Of course, I'm not an expert on it or anything like that, and just like in general letting things go that you don't need, because a lot of the content around the luxury space is about consuming things, about unboxing things, buying things, going shopping, and I love watching all that stuff, and I don't have a problem with watching people spend millions and millions of dollars because I love that content. But at the same time, it's important for people watching that who are maybe not in the space themselves to know that it is a good thing to let go things that you don't need, to not create waste, to not make unnecessary purchases that are just going to sit in your closet. So I'm obviously someone who loves to shop, and I can definitely be a little bit trigger happy while I'm shopping, and it's totally okay, totally normal to go home, try it out. If you don't like it, it's perfectly fine to let it go. And honestly, I do feel like it's a skill to be able to recognize the fact that you're not using something, that you don't need something, and that you're not going to be using it later down the line. I mean, I have a little bit of hoarding tendencies myself, I think, but it's something that I've definitely been actively trying to work on this year, which is why I've been able to let some bags go. Okay, so that brings me to a wrap on today's video. I hope that you were able to gain a little bit of insight on some of the reasons why I dislike some bags and why I prefer some bags over others. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them down below, and please don't forget to check out Anna Luisa. Once again, their link is down in the description, and they are having a major sale you don't want to miss. But as always, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll definitely see you in the next one. Bye guys!